Good morning, Americans. This is your favorite alien here today on June 18th, sitting in for Paul Harvey. Stand by for commentary. Well, this year marks the 40th anniversary of the hostage crisis. Remember November 1979 when Khomeini decided that he wanted to take names and dictate. So he took the 52 hostages, and then you had President Carter there. 444 days later, you had the great communicator saying, the hostages are free. Well, you ever thought what got you there in the first place? Nobody ever told you that, did they? No, that was never spoken of. Why was the United States Embassy violated with the Geneva Convention? You don't see that happen to many other countries, do you? I haven't seen it in the last 60 years that I know of, except for the United States. The reason why goes back 20 years before the, or 25 plus years before the takeover of the embassy in 1979. And it was because uh, of the Reza Pahlavi family that ruled Iran. Back in the early 1900s, his father uh, took over Iran and became Shah of Iran in the early 1900s. But you must remember that back in the early 1900s, the top power in the region was the Ottoman Empire and the Turks. So the Turks said, Turkey, 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 and everybody went woof, 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 in that area anyway. And Iran was a backwards country. I mean, ever since the glory days back before the time of Christ, Iran has been taken over by Tom, Dick, and Harry. And Reza Pahlavi was tired of that, so he decided to build something Shah style there. Well, the Shah style of government didn't fit in Iran, which now was a Muslim country. And the British also, in 1919, accumulated a lot of territory, which made the Shah very unhappy. One of them was Iraq. The British controlled that, and so Iraq and Iran became kind of disastrous enemies. Anyway, in the early 1950s, his son, the Shah that you guys know, was deposed by, I wouldn't say, they were people that were moderate compared to today's mullahs that ruled Iran. They were moderates, but the United States didn't like that fact because they were Muslim and they didn't like the Muslims ruling Muslims. So they intervened and put the Shah back on. That irked. And you don't know how people react to certain things when you got a foreign entity coming into your country and telling you, this is the guy we want. I know that by experience being from Panama. That doesn't work well that doesn't work at all. It causes animosities. It did in my country for generations, causing a riot in 1964. So I can assume what it did in Iran back in the 50s. So, uh, and the Americans caused it in my country too, the same as they caused this mess in Iran. And they don't understand it, even today. They don't get it. So here's the problem, Americans. You put the Shah back in, and you developed a lot of money. I mean, by the 1970s, Iran was what, the fifth most powerful nation in the world back then? All that money you put into armament, equipment, training, you never did that to Panama. You kept on giving them lip service. But to Iran, you had F-14s there. You had, all kinds of the most advanced equipment at the time you had in Iran. Well, what you didn't have, and we didn't count on, was Ayatollah Khomeini, who had a good following in there. And the Shah of Iran had no uh, other way but to tell him, okay, you can come back home in February 1979, which he did. But that was the worst mistake. That's like telling Omar Torrijos, hey, you can come back home, like what happened in 1969 when a group of National Guardsmen in my country overthrew him for a little bit. He was out of the country. So he came back and he landed in my capital of my province, Cherokee, David. And he had people that came all over the place. By the time he got to Panama City, which was almost 900 miles away, the guys had no recourse but to flee the country. They left. Same with the Shah of Iran. He didn't understand when he put Ayatollah Khomeini back in February '79. That was the end of him, and it was. It only took the Shah, what, 3 or 4 or 5 months, and bye-bye Shah. And where did you guys stuck the Shah? In my home country. Why? He's buried over there. Ain't that terrible? That's what I call disgusting. And then, when you went to Iran, well, Iran had no trouble but to take your embassy, and thus created 40 years of disaster. President Trump doesn't know what kind of disaster he's dealing with today. And he's dealing with it like it was a regular hum bad country. Iran is not a bad country. It's a disastrous country, and sanctions make it even more irritable. You don't understand what you're dealing with there. Until you do, you're going to have a big problem. This is your favorite alien, sitting in for Paul Harvey, telling you, I wish I could say you got good times ahead, but with the current leadership in Iran, I'm sorry, Americans. You guys are in for, as you would say, hell in the handbasket. So, till the next time, this is Paul Harvey saying, good day.